Well, stay with us to make sense of this conversation is Dr. Gani Oluwashola and Mr. Isiaka Gbadamosi, who is, of course, joining us virtually.
Typically, you know the way it works. I tell people, you know, when we are growing up, when somebody is being given an opportunity, when you travel to a village and you want to bring someone to Lagos, it's excited. As if when it comes to Lagos, it will be picking money from the grounds or from the as a leaf from Lagos. So it's when it comes to Lagos, I say, oh, things are not like that, that it needs to work hard. So the same thing, people that have not been perhaps permitted to use this word, have not been privileged to travel out of Nigeria before, and they assume that once you get to a specific area outside the country, it will be extremely better than Nigeria. There was a time a lady put on her social handle and said that, oh, she was happy relocating back from Canada to Nigeria because she was being subjected to a dehumanization, dehumanized environment, and also a life that is not comfortable. So coming back to Nigeria is like a breakthrough for her. Right? So there's a lot of things that is happening over there. But what we are begging our leaders is that let us enjoy being a Nigerian. A typical, look at it, Dirham before, the gap between Dirham, which is the currency being spent in Dubai, and Nigeria, it's not wide. Naira. But now, it's a huge sum of money. So when you look at it vis-a-vis, and I can remember also, it's just by the leaders we are having. Maybe we are being punished with not having a good leaders. There was a time in the early 70s, Dubai Prince came to meet Obasanjo and said that, please, can you loan us some money to develop our country? And Obasanjo looked at Dubai and said that, oh, this is a desert. I cannot waste this our coins and deploy it and borrow you to use it in a desert.
You didn't have foresight then.
Right? Then now they are billions of dollars in that environment because they have structured the environment. There was a couple of times then when you even get to Dubai, the car they use for Uber, right? It's like the big cars that our big men are using over here. So you look at the gap, and the leader says that one of the things is just like, because the leaders must be able to must be more concerned about the citizen than his or herself. So when we look at it vis-a-vis, and the only thing I see that if the UAE are saying that, oh, what we are professing, what our minister says that 640,000 naira non-refundable currency, what is going to paint us is that, oh, does it mean that the government wants to exploit its citizen?
Or some individuals are trying to play hanky.
You understand? To exploit the citizen, to travel. So it can just show that they can't even trust our government. With that information, why will you have a $10,000 as a bank balance? Even if you are going to UK or it's not been so for Dubai here. You know what? Honestly, I'm not a fan.
When you say Dubai here,
I'm telling you, if you need to get to that place and see, it's just because they have a foresight.
Who is really trying to defend?
This is a place where rain falls once in a year. If not because they use a scientific means to draw rain and there's a flood of this rain. They don't. It's a place where you can see and say that they use more of white car because it's more or less like you can see the environment. But the question is that why we've seen our leaders that travel wide. They've even stayed there. Why can't you import what is being done there, replicate it in this country, and make this country a much more... Nigeria has a lot of resources. Even one of the EFCC chairman even said, he said he was still surprised when you see a lot of loot that is being taken away from this country. And he's still saying that this is in Nigeria. And said that, how does this country survive? And still surviving. This Abacha loot, it has not been recovered. He said it took us almost 10 years to recover part of the loot, and we are still recovering. This is because Abacha died. What about those people that have not died? What about people that are still... And we use... even the Dubai we are talking about, that they have the iPhone 3 and be giving us some kind of... and banning us.
I like that phrase.
You see a street there. It's owned by Nigeria, right? They don't have the audacity. You see, we take our currency, our hard-earned currency, and dump it there. And you know that they're smart. They have this policy and said you are free to bring it to Dubai, but you can't take out of here.
That's actually bring me to this question now, Dr. Ganiyu. What Dubai or United Arab Emirates actually use is the oil money that they generate. Nigeria also happened to be part of the OPEC, that's OPEC country. And when you go back to the United Arab Emirates, you find out that the government actually put so many policies in place to make sure that life of citizens are kind of better and stronger. We rarely hear that people from United Arab Emirates want to move over to Nigeria to stay and all that. We have like, if you're pregnant there, from the time you take in CO, patent time, maybe tertiary institution level, the government will take care of that. Even those who are doing business also have loans from the government. Nigeria also have oil. We are also oil producers. What do you now think is what is making Nigerian government to be redundant in doing the needful to make sure we utilize or we have a very good output from the oil that we have in Nigeria?
You see, this happens if you don't have the interest of the country at heart. If you don't have the interest of the people at heart, if you are just concerned about yourself and enriching yourself, that is when you are going to have this kind of problem in our hands. When you get to even Dubai, the way it even works, you can't get a citizen of Dubai. You cannot. The way it even works is that their guy can only marry you. You can't marry their guy. Once you marry their guy, you are no longer their citizen. You see, they're so long put so you know why I'm annoyed is that Dubai is not better than Nigeria. Nigeria has a far resources to be far better than Dubai. You see, it's an environment you need to go there and see. You understand? But the question is that how do we handle our resources there? Over there, I once said there was a time that a prince came in on board. And he discovered that it's not that there's no corruption over there, but because there's a system that works, there's a system that can checkmate them, and there's this political will to cut off your wing.
And that's what we lack in Nigeria.
Right? So the man discovered that, they gave this prince a $3 billion project. He only spent $500 million there. So he got to a time and said that, okay, I'm here, and there's a cash crowd. They need more money to fund it. They don't need to borrow. So they need to look inward. Who are the people holding us into ransom? Because it's also become an issue. When a person is richer than a country, there's a problem. Or a person in a state, a former governor, is richer than the state, there's a problem there.
Is that really a problem? Because we know there are individuals who are richer than countries.
There are individuals, if there are policies in place, there's no how. That is, let me even digress a bit. That is why in US, you see that people like Bill Gates Foundation, because even your inheritance, you can't, once you transfer it, half of it goes to back to the government, right? So they try to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. And so those kind of people, they also levy them more in taxes. The question is that in Nigeria, who are the people paying the taxes? Who are the people paying more? So are we trying to bridge the gap?
In that area,
are we trying to bridge the gap or widen the gap? Right? Are we trying to put more burden? Right? Look at the Kenyan government. Even say, it said, how can I use so much money to buy presidential jets?
It's interesting. You understand? It's interesting you mentioned the Kenyan government, and I'm sorry to cut you here. A 7 minister in Nigeria posted this link to Nigerians, stating that these particular restrictions are the reason why the UAE government would give and grant Nigerians visa. And this same 7 minister is still in power. Why is there nothing being done to this regard? That's one. Secondly, I put it to you this beautiful morning that in Dubai, per hour, they pay them 92 dirhams, which is about 1 dirham to Nigerian currency, about 435 naira. Now, just oppose it per hour. Nigerians are still seeking for salaries increase from our government. Now, at this point, where do Nigerians have their succor, even at this time?
That is where I talk about leadership, right? A leadership is that if you don't also have a system to be able to, even the EFCC chairman says that if the asset you acquire does not reflect your current pay, it is questionable. You leave a political office, right? And after leaving a political office, you have you amass so much wealth. The question is that what are you being paid when you are still in the office? How do you get so? As we speak, the former governor of Kogi is yet to be brought to book. So much annoying, right? Right?
Okay.
It's still yet to be brought to book. He even have the effrontery and the courage, the audacity, saying that you must bring it to my state. Don't get it. And this is a sovereign country. And you know what it pictures for us in the global space is that it's an environment you can go away and do what you want to do.
Okay.
Do you understand? So, but these are things we need to look at. Indeed, if Nigeria are ready and we have the political will, honestly, Nigeria can be better. Even most of these bandits, Boko Haram, most of them are self-sponsored. Most of these government officers, we know them. But the question is that, do you have the courage to unpick them and use them as a deterrent? The political will is not there. Right until we come of it and say that this is Nigeria. Because do not forget, if this country is in chaos and you decide to run away from this country, you will still come back here. You still have family members. There's no how you can evacuate all your generation out of this country. This is what you should know. You must make your own better off. And I like why, or something about Trump, he said American first. American first. And that's why they're giving him a thumb up. We must come to a state and say, Nigeria first. What are we going to do to the citizens of this country to make their life better and to even make Nigeria a better place to stay? Dubai, we all talk about Dubai. Even a lot of people want to travel to Dubai. You see them having a dancing sea, having a tourist environment, and you see a whole street owned by a Nigerian former minister. Where did he? And the money you move it to another jurisdiction to develop that jurisdiction.
I think the onus now falls on the Nigerian government to probe its officials that have, or individuals that have moved monies from Nigeria to invest in other countries like the UAE, for example. They should be probed. Maybe that way they will stop the that attitude.
Even if they don't want to probe them, we advise the government, do like what Dubai Prince did. Pull them together. Get a very good top-class hotel in Abuja. Lock them there. You are going nowhere. 1 year you will be there. You will eat, you will drink, your wife will be there. If you need 2 girlfriends, you will be given there. But you are going nowhere. But out of this money, we won't jail you. You have a house in Dubai. We know you stole that money. Bring the money back to Nigeria. Invest it. We are not even collecting the money from you. Invest the money back into Nigeria. Liquidate it. All this foreign money. Bring it back to this country. We know you stole some amount of money. I know it. Out of this money, bring back, give me
all right, because
so much amount of it. Once you collect that money, you bring it back in, and it's going to, we don't need to borrow. What Edun says, he said we don't need to borrow. But the question is that you asking, did he advise? There's one thing for you to advise. There's another thing for you to take. And do not forget that if he misbehaves, tomorrow we have another minister of finance. Do you get it? So it needs to also be, he will give his advice. If he's taking, fine. If he's not taking, he play his game and ensure that what he can do better until he finishes tenure. All
right, thank you very much. So would that be your concluding thoughts?
It's fine.
All right then. Thank you very much, Dr. Gani Oluwashola, FCTI, Managing Partner, that's a title, Managing Partner, KJB Professional Services. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Unfortunately, we lost connection to our virtual guest, Isiaka Gbadamosi, but we must say a big thank you to you as well for participating, for your thoughts and your views. Isiaka Gbadamosi is a public affairs analyst and an SDG advocate. Well, we thank you as well for your time on the program. Let's also put it out there that the conversation of the $10,000 bank balance and the 640,000 naira required for visa application to the UAE has been debunked by officials from the United Arab Emirates. And the Minister of Information did say that the Nigerian government will look into that. But we also have concerns as to looking into the way Nigerians were brought back, looking into relationship between the UAE and Air Peace, and other issues that led to a breakdown of a relationship between Nigeria and the UAE. Well, this conversation, of course, will continue in days to come. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we get into business, entertainment, and sports. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's still VOP this morning on Voice of the People Television. We'll have to move straight down to the discussion of the day. The first one is about the President Bola Tinubu requesting from the Senate to approve an additional 6.2 trillion naira to be injected in the 27.5 trillion naira 2024 budget. He seeks to withdraw 3.2 trillion naira from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for capital expenditure and another 3 trillion naira for additional recurrent expenditures for the year ending December 31st, 2024. The president is also seeking an amendment to the 2023 Finance Act to impose a windfall tax on banks and establish guidelines for its administration. The Senate has prioritized this request, listing them as executive bills for prompt consideration. If the proposed 6.2 trillion naira is added to the 27.5 trillion naira for 2024 budget, the budget size will increase to 33.7 trillion naira. And we have two gentlemen to help make sense of this discussion this morning. We have Dr. Gani Oluwashola, FCTIE Managing Partner, KJB Professional Services. And he's here with us in the studio this morning. And also he will be playing the figure of a public affairs analyst too. And joining us virtually we have Isiaka Badamosi, a public affairs analyst and SDG advocate. Good morning to you, Dr. Gani.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good to have you in today's show. Mr. Isiaka Badamosi, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Good morning.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Good to have you in today's show. We're looking at another ingest of 6.2 trillion naira in the 2024 budget. And the Senate are saying that this is very, very important to do. And in fact, it caused a little argument in the House where some people were of the opinion that they need to take it easy. And some said, no, they need to work very hard to do it. One of the reasons being given is the issue of the minimum wage to avoid strike. There, some people were saying we need to, pass this bill fast so that there will not be breakdown or there will not be strike or industrial action in Nigeria. What do you make of us as Nigeria as a country running 33.7 trillion naira as a budget for this year?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. First and foremost, good morning to our listeners and viewers out there. The federal government of Nigeria has an obligation and a duty to ensure that the economy of the country runs smoothly. It also has a duty and obligation to ensure that labor issues and labor union issues are not allowed to exacerbate to the extent that it starts to affect the economy of the country. Already we have companies and other productive outfits that are already leaving the country for one reason or the other. So I think it's a thing that the government ought to look at, because I expected that this ought to have been made, provision ought to have been made for this, especially the increment in workers' salary. Provision ought to have been made for it at the beginning of the year. But I think owing to the fact that the figure that is expected had not been reached, that's why that was not done then. And coming now, I think there's a need for us to expedite action on it. More so, there is the issue of food insecurity in this country. And I would not know what the details of that supplementary budget is. That's the recurrent and the recurrent expenditure would have to include the workers' pay, but the capital project part of it, if it has to do with food security in Nigeria and things that has to do with matter of insecurity, I think it's something that we need to take very seriously, and the Senate needs to see how to work assiduously to ensure that these funds are made available.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Isaku, for that explanation. Now, Dr. Ganiu, Nigerians are passing through untold hardship, as the case may be. And then this present administration is yet to tell us how they've spent the 27.5 trillion naira we actually have as the budget. And we're having another 6.2 trillion naira now as a request from this present administration. Do you think this is actually, a step in the right direction?
For me, if you ask me, I'll say no. Well, when we talk even about budget simply means an estimated income and expenditure. This is what this is what was spent last year, and for this year we assume this is what should be spent, factoring in inflations and devaluation of our currency. That vis-a-vis we should not exceed it. It's a budget, right? So budget can either be over, it can either be over budgeted, right? And we have one that is under budgeted. So in the long run, there's what we call actual. So actual take into consideration the variance between what we budgeted for and what we actually spent, right? And do not forget, even in the budget, we also have deficit budgets, right? And also the government also have the capacity, also have the provision to submit the supplementary budget in case there are other things that come in. But when you look at it vis-a-vis what has been happening in the country, we are just half of the year. And this is the budget. This is one of the highest budgets in Nigeria history. And in this budget, we said subsidy is gone, and we still have so much budget, so much planning, so much expectation to be able to meet up with. And in this itself, we also spent so much. It was on record, Showore say it, that they have purchased the presidential jet that worth over $100 million. $100 million. Not only that, they also have they more provision for $50 million to be able to for customization. $150 million for what?
Now, it's interesting you did mention this, and sorry to cut your line of thought. There is also, just like my colleague did mention, the fact that this same present administration has not come out to tell Nigerians how they spent the previous budget. I mean, it's a law that they are supposed to have upheld, and of course, the responsibility is upon them to give it out to Nigerians. They've not done that. There is also the part of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. The Senate has asked for a suspension of that project from continuing. In other words, it has started. Was the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway inside the budget? And if yes, who did sign the budget? Some quarters have said that this present Senate did not look through the budget. Are you sharing that particular opinion with those quarters? And then again, how can government balance the need for increased spending as regards fiscal responsibility?
Okay, brilliant. You see, at the beginning now, when you look at it, what is happening, then you see that what is the present communication and the strength of the president economic team, right? These are the people that should advise him appropriately. You talk about the coastal highway, and do not forget they said that there was an itch there, that because they failed to make some projection and they lost over 1 trillion naira has been a waste, and nobody is accounting for that. This is taxpayer money in this hard time that you force it, you ensure that the taxpayer, they pay their necessary due, and a whole 1 trillion was wasted, and no deterrent, nobody was held responsible. It's as if nothing has happened, right? And then we also move ahead and say that, the presidential flight is risky, and we spend over, if you convert that to Nigerian currency, you know how much of quadrillion is going to be? $150 million to be able to incur presidential jet, right? And we are not, and when you look at a country, right, that's why I said that the economic team of the president must be able to look into this. That they are there to be able to advise him appropriately. There was a time, Mr. Wale Adok says, he said, with what I've seen, and with the level of our borrowing, we will no longer borrow because it is inimical to to the growth of the economy. and now we see ourselves still borrowing. Then the question is that this money we are talking about, is it that there is a jumbo? Is it that there's an overflow in our revenue? Do we have more assets? The question is that what are we using to fund it? We are using borrowing to fund our excessive lifestyle. It's just as if we are grounded. It's like as if the economy, the country itself is sitting on a gunpowder which is ready to be exploded. Because as we speak now, before now, there's so much, our indebtedness is so much now, and we are not even talking about the principal. We are talking about financing what we are borrowing. Financing what we are borrowing, even the revenue we make is not enough to finance what we are borrowing. In other words, let's assume that we make 100 naira revenue and we are financing our budget, our debt with 95 naira. What is left is 5 naira, which is not enough. And on top with it, we are still incurring more debt. And show me a country or a nation or a jurisdiction that is spending so much on recurrent expenditure and not on capital project. I will tell you a country that is not going to stand the test of time. Out of even this supplementary budget bringing in, 3.2 is on recurrent expenditure. Which nation does that? Which economy does that? Because when it's just like, once you get more money, you invested your money, it's just like you, after savings all through your lifestyle, you now collected the money to go and buy an SUV. Right? That becomes an expense, that becomes also a liability to you. You are not incurring, you are not planting a capital project, creating employment opportunity. We are not restructuring our country. And when you now talk about this now, we look at a lot of people are losing their job because the sixth multinational company has left the shop Nigeria. Right? Even the one in Songwater now has left the shop. And you see when you see people that are not taking responsibility, you now come up and say that, oh, let them go. It's giving an avenue for our local industry to be able to showcase themselves. Is the local industry are not there before? Are they paying as much as these people are paying? Are they employing so much people? So these are the things. We should not cover our laxity and our shortcoming by making a statement that is not worthwhile. And we see our inflation is gradually approaching 40, which is the highest